Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into a real-life mystery, and we are traveling to a tiny island right in the heart of the Mediterranean Sea, Malta. Now, you might just think of Malta for its beautiful beaches, but we are here because this island holds one of humanity's greatest and, honestly, most mysterious prehistoric achievements. We're going to explore this magnificent, massive site that was completely lost to time for millennia, only to be unexpectedly unearthed and basically rewrite everything we thought we knew about the ancient world.
So when you think about the ultimate ancient wonders of the world, your mind probably jumps straight to the Great Pyramids of Egypt, right? Or maybe the towering stones of Stonehenge. But what if I told you there's a monumental stone structure that actually predates both of them? It's true. The Tarxien Temples were built way back around 3150 BCE. That date alone makes this complex a mind-bendingly ancient feat of human engineering. It totally forces us to rethink the entire timeline of human capability.
Okay, let's dive into this. When we put these timelines side by side, it is absolutely fascinating. The Tarxien Temples were rising out of the earth centuries before the pharaohs even began planning their monumental tombs, or before the ancient Britons aligned their famous standing stones. This timeline juxtaposition is absolutely crucial because it proves that Malta's Neolithic farming communities weren't just barely surviving, they were master stone builders. Over generations, long before these other famous monuments even existed, these islanders developed a culture and an architectural tradition that is literally unlike anything else in Europe at the time.
To really grasp the scale of this mystery, we have to look at this staggering 5,000-year journey, which is basically marked by three massive turning points. First, you have 3150 BCE, which is the absolute peak of their temple construction. But then, and this is the wild part, fast forward to 2500 BCE, and the civilization just completely vanishes. Poof, gone. For thousands of years, there is nothing but silence, until a totally accidental rediscovery in 1913 CE. Think about that immense gap. For centuries upon centuries, the grandest architecture of the ancient world was just sleeping right underfoot.
And that brings us to exactly how this sleeping giant was finally woken up. Imagine you're a local farmer in 1913. You're a guy named Lorenzo Despot, and you're just out there trying to plow your field, just going about your normal daily routine. But your tools keep striking these massive, frustratingly stubborn rocks hidden in the dirt. Instead of just ignoring it, he actually reports this unusual annoyance. He had absolutely no idea that he, and generations of farmers before him, by the way, had literally been living and planting crops directly on top of a buried, prehistoric lost world. Well, that farmer's complaint eventually caught the attention of a renowned Maltese archaeologist named Themistocles Zamet. And when Zamet arrived to investigate, what emerged from the dark earth between 1915 and 1919 absolutely astonished the entire archaeological world. I mean, they didn't just find a few old rocks. They uncovered a vast, elaborate temple complex. We're talking enormous limestone chambers, beautifully carved altars, and these mysterious statues beginning to see the light of day for the first time in millennia. And just how vast was this hidden world? Researchers quickly realized they were looking at not one, but four separate, intricately interconnected temple structures within this single complex. This wasn't some primitive, haphazard gathering of stones. The fact that these four structures were built over several centuries, yet connect so deliberately to one another, demonstrates an incredibly advanced level of architectural knowledge and long-term societal planning. This brilliant planning is actually best illustrated by their use of what we call apses. Think of perfectly curved, symmetrical chambers arranged beautifully around a central corridor. This is a totally unique architectural signature found throughout Malta's prehistoric temples. To create these perfectly symmetrical sacred spaces, the builders had to utilize massive limestone blocks. We are talking about stones standing several meters tall and weighing many tons. The precision required to form these graceful, curved walls out of such punishingly heavy materials is honestly hard to wrap your head around. Now, while the engineering is stunning, the artistry might actually be even more impressive. If you take a walk through the South Temple, you'll find the walls adorned with these intricate spiral patterns carved directly into those giant limestone blocks. And right alongside them are incredibly detailed sculpted reliefs of everyday animals, bulls, pigs, and goats. And you want to know the most mind-blowing part of this whole shebang? They did it all using only simple stone tools. There were no metal chisels here, just stone on stone, immense patience, and some profound creativity. Those 5,000-year-old spiral carvings remain super iconic today, yet they are completely shrouded in mystery. What did they actually mean? Archaeologists have debated this for decades. Some experts believe they were symbols of life and fertility, while others think they mapped out spiritual journeys, or maybe the endless turning cosmic cycles of the stars and the seasons. Paired with those detailed animal carvings we just talked about, it really reveals just how deeply connected their religious practice was to the natural world and the livestock that they completely depended on to survive. But the spirals definitely aren't the only mystery found in the dark earth of Tarxien. Here is a big one. Who exactly did the complex's colossal statue represent? This is one of the most famous and, honestly, most fiercely debated unsolved archaeological mysteries of the entire site. Someone, or something, was so important to these people that they dedicated an absolutely unimaginable amount of grueling labor to immortalize them in stone. To really understand why this statue is such a big deal, you have to picture its sheer scale. Based on what was actually found, archaeologists estimate this figure once towered over worshippers at more than 2.5 meters tall. That is over 8 feet. That makes it one of the absolute largest human representations from Europe's entire Neolithic era. It was clearly meant to dominate the space, to be looked up at in total reverence or awe. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the catch. Only the lower half survives today. Yep, we have these massive rounded legs, a highly detailed pleated skirt, and enormous feet, but the upper body is completely missing. Because of this, we can't look at its face or its chest to figure out its identity. So scholars are just left with theories. Some argue this massive, wide figure depicts a powerful fertility goddess. Others suggest it might represent an elite priest, a powerful ancient ruler, or even a spiritual figure blending genders. The truth is literally locked away in the missing stone. What we do know for sure is how the space around that statue was used. It's absolutely crucial to understand that these magnificent buildings were not homes. Nobody actually lived here. These were sacred ritual spaces, the absolute center of their social and spiritual lives. Excavations revealed beautifully carved altars and offering areas, and there's really clear evidence pointing toward livestock sacrifice. The discovery of fireplaces and hearths also tells us that fire played a vital role in their ceremonies. This was a place totally alive with the sights, sounds, and smells of seasonal festivals, community gatherings, and probably desperate prayers for agricultural fertility. So we have a society building colossal statues and massive ritual spaces. Which brings us to a glaring, practical, and utterly baffling question. How in the world were these multi-ton stones moved? Remember the context here. These Neolithic builders faced harsh, unforgiving physical constraints. They had 0 iron tools. They had no engines. They had no cranes. How does a society manage such large-scale, monumental engineering without a single piece of modern technology?
Well, the answer lies in human ingenuity and massive, highly organized cooperation. It was a grueling 3-step process. First, archaeologists actually discovered perfectly rounded stone rollers near the site, proving they transported these massive blocks by literally rolling them across the landscape. Second, they guided these shifting mountains of rock using thick ropes and wooden supports. And third, positioning them perfectly required incredibly coordinated human labor. This wasn't just a few friends moving a rock. This required hundreds of cooperating people in a highly organized society with clear leadership and a shared purpose. And they maintained this highly organized society for centuries, until we hit the ultimate unsolved mystery. Around 2500 BCE, temple construction across Malta just abruptly ends. The masterful builders who engineered these absolute wonders completely disappear from history. There's no slow decline recorded in the stones. The grand tradition simply stops, and the builders vanish. So what happened to them? The scholarly community has several theories for this vanishing act. Some point to severe environmental problems, perhaps a massive shift in the climate that destroyed their crops. Others suggest critical resource shortages on this tiny island, or maybe radical social changes that led to a civil collapse. Finally, simple population decline from disease or famine is a distinct possibility. The truth is, archaeologists impartially study all these angles, but no one knows for certain why this brilliant civilization simply blinked out of existence. You know, nature abhors a vacuum, and so does history. After the original builders vanished, the sacred center didn't stay empty forever. It was later repurposed by newly arriving Bronze Age communities. But they didn't build upon the grand architecture. Instead, they used the site for cremation burials, leaving their own distinct mark. Eventually, though, even they moved on. The temples were abandoned entirely, slowly swallowed up by wind, rain, and the accumulating earth, lying in complete silence for millennia, until Lorenzo de Spot's plow struck stone. Thankfully, today, that silence has been replaced by awe and preservation. This site is now fiercely protected. It's a proud part of the UNESCO-listed Megalithic Temples of Malta. If you visit today, you'll actually see these massive protective shelters hovering over the ruins to shield the 5,000-year-old stonework from the harsh elements. And to ensure the delicate art survives for another 5 millennia, the original sculptures, including the giant statue and those spiral blocks, have been carefully moved to climate-controlled museums. Exact replicas remain on site, allowing visitors to walk right through the very chambers first entered over 5,000 years ago.
So the crucial point is, this is a monument built by people whose names have completely vanished, but whose achievements still endure. The people of Tarxien left absolutely no written records behind. We don't know the names of their kings, their high priests, or the master architects who dreamed up those curved apses. But by dreaming big and challenging the very limits of human imagination with literally nothing but stone and muscle, they ensured their legacy would outlast them. It really leaves us looking at the ground beneath our own feet a little differently, doesn't it? As we wrap up this explainer, I'll just leave you with this thought. If a civilization capable of building monuments older than the pyramids could be lost under a farmer's field until just a little over a century ago, what other ancient stories and lost civilizations are still buried in stone, just waiting to be unearthed? Stay curious and keep exploring the incredible scale of